Hello, everybody. I am Colonel Sanjay Pande, and with me, I have Professor Sonali Chitalkar. She's from Miranda House, Delhi University. She's a professor of political science. Next, about 4 to 5 videos, we are going to focus on a theme: army and geopolitics. And when I say army, you can extend that to the armed forces. We are basically going to be discussing how exactly is geopolitics aligned with the army, armed forces, along with whatever events are happening today. So, to start this entire series, this is the first episode, and I would hand over now to Professor Sonali.
Thank
What
you.
yours?
Thank you, Colonel Pandey. So I'll quickly, in the next 2 to 3 minutes, just be posing a few, very flagging of a few very important issues. So we've seen that recently, there's so the international scenario is in upheaval. That's literally boiling with Afghanistan happening. A few months ago, we had things happening on our own border in Galwan in Ladakh. So my thing is that my question to you, the main broader question to you is, since the army has its existence at the borders, it is supposed to be guarding our territorial borders. So why should the army not be trained in geopolitics? Why should it be trained in geopolitics? I'll also briefly give a little framework of what do I really mean when I say geopolitics. See, we know very clearly that the army is very well trained, very well attuned to territory, to thinking in terms of territory. But geopolitics is a broader concept. When you think about territory in the terms of it being a space which is populated by culture, politics, by economics, so why should the army not classify our neighborhood, geopolitical neighborhood, and even broader international, the international scenario in terms of territory as a space. The second thing that I would like to flag off was that it's when you think of territory as a space, then you think about how one space is connecting to another. And that is the core of international politics and geopolitics, that every space is connected to another. Let me give a very small example in terms of Afghanistan, where now, when events have happened in Afghanistan, are we not thinking about what is happening in Kashmir? So, what about these? Doesn't the army need to know these interconnections in a very systematic, classified way? Now, what are the attributes that connect places? Shouldn't the army be having a classification of those? What are the attributes? The attributes are culture, they are religion, which go across boundaries. So, shouldn't we be looking at these particular attributes? A couple of more points before I hand it over to you. When we talk about geopolitics, we generally talk about states and how states are competing for territory and boundaries. But there is a broader conception of geopolitics which says that there are non-state actors which are also engaged. So, do our armed forces have a thoroughgoing classification, a dynamic, ongoing classification of what are the non-state actors which are affecting our, national interest? Is our strategy taking into context these things? And lastly, 75 years into independence, what have we done in our immediate geopolitical neighborhood? How are we looking at our own neighborhood in terms of geopolitics? So, thank you.
What Professor Sonali raises now, let me give you an assurance to all the viewers that this video is going to be opposed, criticized by the establishment, and rightly so. No one would like to be criticized or to be told that what they are doing and what they are not doing. So rather than assuming that army is not doing geopolitics, they don't study geopolitics. Rather than assuming that, I will put this question in a very counter way that yes, they are doing it. They are too much deeply into it. They are into the geopolitics of the neighborhood. They are. And now I will ask some questions. 1962 war took place, and Galwan has taken place 2020. Right? How many years?
Yeah, it's for more than
40, 50 years,
yeah,
right?
5 decades.
Almost about 60 years, right? Where are we exactly? So 62 takes place and Galwan takes place. Our Ministry of Home Affairs website, when you open and you see the international boundary and you see the map of now the erstwhile earlier Jammu and Kashmir, now the Ladakh, the boundaries that are depicted on the MHA website and where exactly army is, the gap is geopolitics. Why doesn't the government, the establishment, or the army say that wherever our boundaries are shown, we are not there? The entire Exai chain is not there. We do not have, people don't even know what Shakskam Valley is, and it is shown as Indian territory. So, if we are doing our geopolitics right in army, in armed forces, why is this anomaly there? We have a war with Pakistan in 65, another in 71, another capture of territory in 99. In 90, the insurgency starts. In 2021, the insurgency is still going on. Where exactly is our geopolitics? 1989, the Russians left Afghanistan, and everyone then knew that all the AK-47s which had been supplied by US are now going to be directed towards India. Everyone said that. We also said that yes, Pathans are there. We have seen Afghanis as terrorists who come to Valley. My point is, had we done our homework well, would all of this have happened? We would have taken a lot of measures to just handle this sort of a problem. We did not. Afghanistan, 2001, when our aircraft gets hijacked, 2021, where exactly are we? Since 2018, world is talking about Qatar and all these talks which are going on. Where exactly are we? Why are we evacuating our people at the last minute and the Air Force is flying the people out? Why, if we had our geopolitics correct, why didn't we evacuate them 3 months earlier? Lastly, there is a point which Sonali made just now, that armed forces are there to guard the borders. Now try and imagine what I am saying. To put it in another way, armed forces have got no business in the hinterland, right? Which means what? Armed forces have to be focused only outside borders. So what Professor Chitalkar is saying, Sonali is saying, that armed forces are to guard borders. My point is that's a start point. That's a start line for the armed forces, for the army. And from there, they have to go out. So our basic job starts from the IB. And we have got no business in the hinterland. So whether it is counterinsurgency, which is going on in JNK, I don't think armed forces have got any business to be there. It's an internal problem. So geopolitics has to come very, very naturally to us. But does it? Does it come? So that is what actually the whole debate is all about. Whatever military writing is available in public domain, whether in form of articles or books or these institutes which publish their papers, give me a paper which talks about deep geopolitics. None of them talk. Why? The reason is very simple. It is not part of formal training. By the time a person is introduced to this topic, he is brigadier and beyond. And suddenly at brigadier's level, we want him to switch over from small time tactics to suddenly to geopolitics. It's not part of our training. When you talk about, again, geopolitics, a striking example, again in public domain, we have got 3 strike corps. We have got all these strategic fighters which are being bought, whether it is Rafale or 35 years back or 25 years back, it was Jaguar. We always talk in terms of their speed, their altitude, and their reach. what reach are we talking of? If you're talking about 1,500 kilometers that it can go and strike a target, so are we not talking about geopolitics? We're talking about all this equipment is coming in only for one reason, that there is something beyond borders that you are aiming at. But why is it not part of our regular training? Had it been there, would a chief or CDS not advise the defense minister or the prime minister well before time, red flag it that this is going to be the problem? It doesn't happen. We have the CDS giving a statement that Air Force is for ground role. So why do you have to buy such costly aircraft, fighters, Rafale? It actually tells you that we have no formal training, we have no understanding of geopolitics. Beyond borders, when we say, is geopolitics. There is something you also mentioned about the spaces. What is the relation between the spaces or the attributes, or how exactly they are going to be affecting us, right? There is something army does so beautifully, no organization does, and that is mapping. This happens only in insurgency area. You go to a company commander, a major, and that major knows how many villages, how many households, how many families are there in his area, who came, who went, demographic structure, religion, everything is known by that man. His survival in counterinsurgency is information. This is the precise information that Sonali is talking of. What she has done is she has simply raised it to the international level. So when it comes to international level, it is not a company commander's job. Now this becomes the job of the top brass. And what exactly is happening there? So far, whatever I have said and whatever you started with, do you think that whatever you want to actually get it out of from me?
Yeah.
Do you think I am talking something very different?
No, in a sense, you are speaking about geopolitics, because we are talking about an army that has its mandate at the international borders. My question was, is there training, or is there established? Are there established, very well established? I should say procedures where the army trains its people in trains at various levels, trains its officers in geopolitics, or I mean that's something which only you can tell me, because
Yeah, coming to what the professor is saying, to be very honest, army does not have, as a culture, any training in geopolitics right from beginning. And when I say not having training at a particular level of brigade's rank or a major general's rank, no, that's not the place to start. If our armed forces are supposed to be guarding borders and only thinking beyond borders, this means a lieutenant who joins or a pilot officer who joins the Air Force at the junior post rank, from there he has to be taught to think beyond borders.
yeah.
Unless he does that, unless he's taught to think, only then you will have brilliant brains coming up. You cannot have. Today, the state is that almost till about 20, 22, 24 years of service, when a person becomes a brigadier, till that time, there is nothing called geopolitics. It's you, your unit, and your local exercises. Nothing else. You do one odd course and one odd exercise comes, so everyone knows exactly what to read. So everyone has to just make a statement, or maybe make a presentation, or make a slide, or write a paper. He does that. No, that's not geopolitics. That's not the knowledge. The knowledge is what Sonali is saying. It has to be ingrained. Fundamentally, our training has to change. The training cannot be limited to only tactics. Geopolitics has to be part of it, because our mandate is to guard the borders, which means my start line is border. I have to go much beyond that. Had the correct geopolitics training been there, we would have never had the three strike course that we have. lakhs and lakhs and lakhs of crores of rupees each year from decades are going down the drain. Why? Because our geopolitics knowledge was not correct. We are scared of Pakistan. We want to create that phobia of Pakistan to create our strike course without realizing he does not have any strategic depth. He's got Sindh River, beyond that, he's got mountains. All you had to do was to not to recognize Duran line, and you just had to tell Afghanistan throughout that we are with you when it comes to Baluchistan and Pashtunistan. So whole belt. So let Pakistan have an enemy on the other side also. But what we did, we created. If Pakistan is what it is today, let me assure you, we are responsible for 95% of their strength. It's we who have made it. And why? Because of the point the professor has brought up, knowledge of geopolitics. She also talks about the attributes not being local in nature, that they can be far. ISIS, what was the genesis? Afghanistan problem, right from the time Russians left. Who was on the scene? Give me a conflict in the world where somewhere or the other the US stamp is not there.
True.
We cannot be sitting here and thinking that because Afghanistan is Muslim and that's why we've got a problem. If religion was the attribute, we should have had excellent relations with Nepal. So why do we? So let's not find alibis as to why we cannot. No, Nepal should be on our side. What exactly is the state? Sri Lanka should be on our side. If you are talking about religious homogeneity, are they? They are not. Coming straight away to the last point, 75 years of independence and exactly where we are in terms of geopolitics. This is the last statement I'm making. After that, I'll just request the professor to take over. 75 years, geopolitics is all about neighbors and their neighbors. We are talking about the immediate neighborhood. How much do we know about Tajikistan or Afghanistan's neighbors? How much do we know about what exactly is the geopolitics going on there? What exactly have we done? I don't have to spell it out here. You know exactly what we have done. So overall, since we do not have this culture of geopolitics in the army, in the armed forces, and now we talk about theaterization, which in effect is about the three armed forces working together towards a bigger aim of the nation, we are still stuck at the borders. So I think we have got lot more to achieve. All yours.
Yeah, thank you so much for this very short but very, very nuanced, kind of a review of army and geopolitics. My question remains the same. I know this cannot be answered or this cannot be, taken up in a single episode. So we have just flagged issues. But I would, when you speak about the USA, Colonel Pandey, I would definitely say that they have their systems very much in place. So they have a synergy between academia, between the armed strategists, and also between the government. So I would just like to, wind up by saying that this is the it's not enough to say that, well, every conflict that has been there in the world has been done by the USA. Well, probably they have done their homework well. So if their geopolitical understanding is geared to national interest, isn't that what we should be emulating? Isn't that what we should be looking at? Which means that they have really classified the world according to their national interest. Is that what you're saying? Isn't that what the whole purpose of this discussion is? Isn't it to bring out that nuance?
This is actually beautifully summed up by you. The statement which I made, that you tell me a conflict where US is not there, and so positively the professor turns it in favor of US, which actually is a big learning for us. Where exactly are we? Shouldn't we be doing the same thing for our national interests? And this is what exactly are we going to be talking in our next episode. This is episode 1. In episode 2, we are going to be coming down to specifics, more specifics, macro level for the armed forces as to what all we should be doing there, what should we be discussing there, so that what US is doing is actually what we should be doing. And if I may add, isn't China doing exactly the same thing now?
exactly. China
They're
is
doing
more
exactly.
thorough at it.
They are more thorough at it.
Yeah.
And with that, we end this episode. Thanks a lot
Thank you.
for watching, and thanks a lot, Professor, for organizing this beautiful series. And keep watching us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.